Welcome back to CBS Mornings. As we told you at the top of the 7 o'clock hour, former President Donald Trump is traveling to Miami today. He's due tomorrow in a courtroom there to respond to his indictment on 37 felony charges over the handling of classified documents after he left the White House. He denies wrongdoing in this case. The special counsel who investigated the case said the following on Friday.
We have one set of laws in this country, and they apply to everyone. Applying those laws, collecting facts, that's what determines the outcome of an investigation. Nothing more and nothing less.
Republican Senator Marco Rubio of Florida is with us now. He is vice chair of the Senate Intelligence Committee and a member of the Committee on Foreign Relations. He's also the author of a new book. It's called Decades of Decadence: How Our Spoiled Elites Blew America's Inheritance of Liberty, Security, and Prosperity. Senator Rubio, quite the subtitle. Glad to have you here.
Thank you.
What's at stake in the book actually is relevant to where we need to start this conversation, which is the indictment of Donald Trump. The last president to get this much trouble with the law was Ulysses S. Grant, who got a ticket for speeding in his buggy. So this is a big deal to a lot of people. I take it from your tweets over the weekend, though, that although the indictment alleges that the president held some of the nation's biggest secrets, kept them even though he was asked to give them back, and then lied to try to cover it up, even though all that happened according to the indictment, you don't think it should have been brought?
Yeah, I picked a great week to come up with a book, didn't I?
Because you were booked before this.
Yeah, of course.
Yes.
No, look, I mean, I don't think there should be classified documents at Mar-a-Lago, at Joe Biden's garage, on Hillary Clinton's server. I mean, there's a proper way to store it. There's a law around that. So I do think, however, that when you bring an indictment like this, it's not done in isolation. It's not done in a vacuum. You got to take a lot of things into account. There's no allegation that there was harm done to the national security. There's no allegation that he sold it to a foreign power or that it was trafficked to somebody else or that anybody got access to it. And you have to weigh the harm of that versus or the lack thereof on the harm that this indictment does to the country. This is deeply divisive. This is a polarized and deeply divided country where on the eve, 17 months away from the election, you're indicting the leading candidate, the likely nominee against the incumbent president. You're already seeing attacks on the judges.
But according to the indictment, though, Senator, he did something wrong. He was given plenty of opportunity to return this material, and he did not do that.
And you have to weigh all of that if proven, right? Because indictments are one-sided documents offered by the prosecution. That's why they have trials. You have to weigh that against the overall harm of the country's prosecutorial discretion. It happens all the time. And when you weigh the two things, which is there's no allegation of harm to the country or national security. There's no allegation in there that it was sold to somebody. Not that they should have been there, but there's no. And then you weigh that against a certain harm of this indictment, because it will be certain harm. This will now put all of our institutions into tremendous crisis. The judge will be attacked, the process will be attacked, the Department of Justice will be attacked, the prosecutor will be attacked.
Do you think Donald Trump can defend his actions based on what's in the indictment?
Well, look, I'm not going to give legal advice on his deal, and what's happening here. I don't know all the facts. I know what's in the indictment. I don't know his defense. I haven't heard from his attorneys. I've already told you those documents should not have been there, like they shouldn't have been in Biden's garage. But the indictment is a separate thing. You're bringing an indictment that basically alleges no real damage to the national security, not that it excuses it, versus what we're going to see now. We're going to subject this country to a divisive spectacle at a time where we're dealing with these major issues that I talk about in this book. We're going to spend the next 17 months arguing over this.
Senator, let me ask you something, just so you can simplify this for the viewer a little bit. You say there's a proper way to store these documents.
Yes.
Trump came out and said there can be a process, but there doesn't have to be. He went on to say that if you're a president, you can declassify anything just by thinking about it. Are there proper steps? Well, is there protocol? How do you declassify?
Yeah, well, look, the president has broad authority when you're president to declassify whatever you want.
That's just by thinking about it?
Hold on.
Well, obviously, there's paperwork. You got to let everybody else know that it's declassified.
Okay.
You got to let everybody else know that it's declassified, and you have to do a process. But I don't think the argument here, in my mind, again, I'm not his legal counsel, so I'll leave that to his lawyers. I think that these are declassified documents. The storage is the issue. These things are generally kept in a safe and not in boxes, like in Joe Biden's garage, like what happened, with Vice President Pence, like what's happened in the past.
But when Hillary Clinton, though, was accused of mishandling classified documents, you described her actions as disqualifying her from being commander-in-chief. How is this different?
Well, and I think those are arguments that President Trump's opponents will use against him in an election, which is the guy doesn't know how to handle classified documents. That's different from, let's now have an indictment where we're going to try to put this guy in jail for the rest of his life, because that's what they're trying to do here, and what that will mean to the country. country, and the inability as a result of this. Look, this is already a very volatile political situation we're living in.
And how did it get so? That's one of the questions. I think we need to put a couple things straight for the record. You're right. The indictment does not say there was harm to national security. It also doesn't exclude the fact, and we all saw how the documents were stored. The difference in this case, according to the allegations, and all the other cases, Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden, Mike Pence, you name it, is the willful nature of it over a very long period of time, more than a year and a half. And so I wonder, and people will argue about the fairness and the two-tier this and all that, and that's an argument for Republicans to have, and they're going to win some people over on that. But the question is, did the former president drag the country into this because of his own behavior?
Well, I would
once
say,
again.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, going back to what I said about why this can't be analyzed in a vacuum, the reason why this will be deeply divisive is there are plenty of people out there, myself included, that using common sense will say, hold on a second, Sandy Berger, he was a national security advisor to President Clinton. He actually stuffed classified information in his sock and hid it under a trailer, okay? And he was charged with misdemeanors as a result of that. Not a felony, not a life sentence like what they're asking for here. On top of everything else, that the unprecedented nature of this is when you're going to prosecute the likely nominee of the Republican Party to run against an incumbent president, that alone is political in nature. You have to know that and take that into account when you decide what to charge them with, how to bring this action, when to bring this action. And now, as a result of it is, we are going to be subjected as a country to a 17-month circus, and it's probably not done. And by the way, this has to be taken in the context of 2 impeachments, 3 years spent chasing a dossier that turned out not to be true, charges here in Manhattan, potential charges out of D.C. that are still awaiting, whatever happens out of Georgia. I mean, this is a circus. It's a mess.
So let's talk about the book, and keep in mind when we talk about the book that the Wall Street Journal makes all the points you're making in an op-ed today, but also says that the Republican voter base, Republicans deserve a leader who is more competent and who has better character than the former president.
Well, that's why we'll have a primary.
Problems.
Yeah, and they're going to vote on that in Iowa and in New Hampshire. I've been through that process myself, and voters will make that decision.
So to solve the problems in that book right there, it's about, in your view, the slide of America from the 1980s to the present day. What do you think the biggest issue is?
Well, our biggest issue is threefold. Number one is that, well, the biggest central issue is the Cold War ended, and we pretended that things like nation state no longer exists. We thought everyone was going to become a free enterprise democracy and that the market could fix every problem, right? That everybody's now a consumer or an investor. And that wasn't true. So we made 3 terrible assumptions. Number one, that you can divorce economy from the well-being of people. So it doesn't matter whether we're losing jobs or industrial capacity, that we can't make things anymore. The important thing is companies are making a lot of money and Wall Street looks good and the stock market's doing well. That's proven not to be the case because economic life isn't just about how much money's being made. It's whether you're creating the kinds of jobs that allow people to be parents, to have communities that hold your country together. The second is foolish decisions about other countries. And the belief that other countries didn't view themselves as a country, they viewed themselves as citizens of the world. And the third is this deeply divisive cultural war that we have going on in our country in which people literally hate each other, won't even speak to each other, members of family.
Hate each other, we don't even know each other, and we hate each other. You say on 209, despite the challenges, you remain optimistic about America. You say we're in desperate need of leadership. Do you think Donald Trump is the leader that we need? Now, I know the voters will decide, but I'm asking you, Senator Marco Rubio, with all that you know, and you know more than most, given your background, do you think he is the person to be the next leader of this country?
Well, I think he'd do a better job than Joe Biden has done.
Really? In a head-to-head, you would choose him over Joe Biden?
Absolutely.
100%.
In a heartbeat, because I'll tell you this, a lot of the ideas that we've been proposing, as an example, up until, and I ran against Donald Trump, okay, he won the primary. But up until Donald Trump was the nominee of the Republican Party, with all the things people may not like about him, the Republican Party's orthodoxy didn't allow you to challenge things like, what do you do when the market outcome is not good for America? What do we do with all this money that's flowing out of American capital markets and helping China build its capacity at our expense? What do we do when, yes, cheaper prices at the store, but 1 million Americans lost their jobs because of an industrial capacity he gave away? He challenged that Republican orthodoxy and opened the door for us to have a lot of the conversations.
But you have many people who have worked with Donald Trump. Bill Barr is speaking out. Chris Christie is speaking out, who said that he is not qualified to be president of the United States.
Well, and that's why we have elections.
This indictment leads us to believe that he may have broke the law. I know the indictment, it has to play itself out. But you believe that he is...
Well, but I mean, and Cornel West thinks that Joe Biden shouldn't be president, and Robert Kennedy Jr. is running out there as for president. So both sides, look, we have a vibrant political process. People can debate about who they think it should be. Voters are going to make that decision. Okay. The bottom line is that our republic will produce a president.
Yeah.
The policies is what we need to hold them to, and that's what I'm hoping to advance with this
Senator,
book.
this is a very readable book. It's 214 pages.
Yeah.
I think people should add the 49 pages of the indictment.
I wanted to
their
make it
reading list.
213
Don't
pages.
listen to us talking about it.
Add the 49 pages
Read the
of the
indictment also. You're going to
yes.
be spun and counterspun on that
At
issue.
least read it,
But
yeah.
this book here is about what's at stake. Senator Marco Rubio, thank you very much.
Thank
It's
you.
called Decades of Decadence. It goes on sale tomorrow wherever you like to buy your books.